HOA President Mary Stevens thought she could ban our Christmas lights and get away with it. Instead, she got sued by the entire neighborhood and lost everything. That's what the newspaper headline read after we took down the tyrant who tried to destroy our holiday traditions. Never in my wildest dreams did I think putting up Christmas lights would end with me flat on my back in the snow, a power-hungry HOA president standing over me, or that it would spark the biggest neighborhood rebellion our town had ever seen. But when Mary Stevens decided to physically shove me off my own ladder, she had no idea what forces she was about to unleash. It was December 1st, a perfect Saturday morning. Fresh snow covered our little neighborhood like something from a Christmas card. My kids, Emma and Tyler, were beyond excited as I dragged the boxes of decorations down from the attic, a family tradition we'd done for years. Nothing crazy, just colorful lights along the gutters, a few light-up reindeer, and a wreath on the door. The kids bounced around planning which decorations would go where, while my wife Sarah made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. It should have been a perfect morning, but I had a strange feeling in my gut. Something was off. I'd noticed the neighborhood changing since Mary Stevens became HOA president 6 months ago. Pink violation notices appearing on doors almost daily. Neighbors whispering instead of chatting openly. Subtle changes adding up to something uncomfortable. "You're overthinking it," Sarah said. But I couldn't shake the feeling that our simple Christmas tradition was about to become very complicated. The ladder was cold against my hands as I climbed up to hang the first strand of lights. Emma handed me the colorful string, her little face glowing with excitement. "When we're done, Daddy, can we turn them on right away?" "Of course, Pumpkin. That's the best part." I was just securing the first row when I heard the unmistakable click-clack of expensive heels on our driveway. Even before I turned, I knew exactly who it was. Mary Stevens was marching toward us like a general inspecting troops. Her perfectly styled blonde hair not moving in the December wind, clipboard in hand, her red coat matching her lipstick exactly. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" she called out, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I looked down, confused. "Just putting up our Christmas decorations, Mary, same as we do every year." Her eyes narrowed as she pulled out what looked like a freshly printed document. "Perhaps you missed the notification. The HOA board voted last week on new holiday decoration guidelines. These," she gestured dismissively at my simple string of lights, "are no longer permitted." I nearly fell off the ladder. "What are you talking about? We've been putting these up for 5 years." I climbed down to get a better look at whatever paper she was clutching so tightly. Mary thrust the document at me, her expression smug. "Section 4, paragraph 7, she said, pointing to a highlighted section. "Holiday decorations must conform to the approved aesthetic guidelines. Only white lights are permitted. Colored lights are expressly prohibited. No inflatables, lawn ornaments, or excessive displays are allowed. Decorations may only be displayed between December 15th and December 26th. I stared at the paper in disbelief. This can't be serious. "The meeting notice went out last month," she replied with a thin smile. "You would have known about it if you'd bothered to attend." I felt my face getting hot. We both know that meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Tuesday when most working families couldn't attend. By then, Sarah had joined us, confusion on her face. "What's going on?" Mary smiled that smile that never reached her eyes. "Just explaining to your husband that those colored lights are against HOA regulations now. You'll need to take those down immediately or face a $100 a daily fine." Sarah's expression hardened. "Mary, these are the same lights we've put up for years. Since before you even moved here, they've never been a problem." The children watched from the porch, their excitement fading as they sensed the tension. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Mary, this is ridiculous. It's Christmas, for heaven's sake. Why would colored lights suddenly be an issue?" "Property values," she snapped back. Uniformity creates an upscale appearance. We're trying to elevate this neighborhood, not turn it into some tacky carnival. Looking down the street, I could see other neighbors pausing their own decorating, watching our confrontation nervously. "I'll bring this up at the next HOA meeting," I said firmly. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a family tradition to continue." Mary's face flushed red. "Defiance is noted," she hissed. "You have until 5 p.m. today to remove those lights or the fines begin." I turned my back on her, returning to the ladder, my hands shaking with anger. The kids looked worried. "Daddy," Emma called, "are we in trouble?" "No, sweetie," I reassured her. "Some people just forget what Christmas is really about." I continued hanging the lights, determined not to let Mary ruin our day. But my mind was racing. This wasn't just about Christmas lights. This was about control. Heard Mary's heels clicking away, then suddenly they stopped and reversed. I felt the ladder shake violently and heard Sarah scream before I realized what was happening. I was falling through the air, landing hard on my back in the snow, the wind knocked out of me. Above me stood Mary, her face contorted with rage. "If you can't follow simple rules," she shouted, "there are consequences." Sarah rushed to my side, while the kids started crying from the porch. "Are you out of your mind?" Sarah yelled. "You could have seriously hurt him." Mary just straightened her red coat. "I was simply steadying the ladder. It's not my fault if he doesn't know how to balance properly." The neighbors who had been watching rushed over. Mr. Peterson from next door helped me to my feet while his wife comforted my terrified children. "I called 911, whispered Mrs. Rodriguez, our elderly neighbor from across the street. "I saw the whole thing." Mary's face paled slightly. She looked around, noticing for the first time that her actions had drawn an audience. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "I'm just enforcing the rules that everyone agreed to. The rules you made up without proper notification or input," corrected Mr. Peterson, who had served on the previous HOA board. Mary turned on her heels so quickly she nearly slipped on the snow. "You'll all be hearing from me," she threatened, marching toward her oversized SUV as police sirens wailed in the distance. My back throbbed as I sat in our living room that evening, holding an ice pack against my bruised spine. Thankfully, nothing was broken, but the police officer who responded, Officer Rodriguez, took my statement seriously. "You want to press charges?" he asked, his notepad ready. I hesitated, looking at Sarah, who nodded firmly. Mary had crossed a line that went far beyond HOA violations. "Yes," I responded, thinking about how my children had watched in terror as I fell. "We need to file a report." Officer Rodriguez wrote everything down carefully. "I saw the whole thing," he said quietly. "She deliberately shook that ladder." His niece lived in our neighborhood, which I hadn't known. He'd been dropping off Christmas cookies when he witnessed Mary's assault. Just then, our doorbell rang. When Sarah opened it, we were surprised to see a group of neighbors standing on our porch. Mrs. Chen brought homemade soup. The Martinez family had cookies. The Petersons brought a file folder stuffed with papers. "We've been documenting Mary's abuses," Mr. Peterson explained, settling onto our couch. What started as support for my injury quickly transformed into something more significant. Our living room became command central for what would soon be known as the Christmas Rebellion. But none of us could have predicted just how ugly things would get before they got better. The stories poured out for the next hour. The Johnsons had been fined for having their daughter's birthday party with too many cars. The Rodriguez family received violations for their cultural holiday decorations last year. The elderly Mr. Thompson was cited for his medical wheelchair ramp not matching the neighborhood aesthetic, each story more outrageous than the last. "Mary doesn't just enforce rules," said Mrs. Martinez. "She makes them up without proper votes. She holds meetings when working people can't attend, and she bullies anyone who questions her." The folder Mr. Peterson brought contained copies of the actual HOA bylaws. Highlighted sections showed Mary had been exceeding her authority. Financial records revealed questionable spending under her leadership, including an expensive neighborhood entrance sign that matched her home's design perfectly. But the most interesting document was the actual holiday decoration guideline. It wasn't officially approved yet. Mary had been enforcing a draft that the board hadn't even voted on. "This goes beyond Christmas lights," Mr. Peterson said slowly. "This is about one person twisting rules to control an entire community." Sarah, who worked as a paralegal, looked through the documents with growing concern. "This isn't just inappropriate," she said. "It could be illegal." Officer Rodriguez, who had stayed to take statements from the neighbors, nodded. "I've seen this before. Power-hungry HOA presidents who think they're above the law. My suggestion, document everything, get as many neighbors involved as possible, and consider legal action." The Christmas lights hanging half-finished on our house suddenly represented something bigger than holiday cheer. They were a symbol of fighting back against petty tyranny. By Monday morning, things had escalated far beyond what any of us expected. Sarah created a private online group for neighbors to share their stories and documentation. Within 24 hours, 57 families had joined, each with their own tale of Mary's reign of terror. The Wilsons had photographic evidence of Mary measuring their grass with a ruler at 6 a.m. The elderly Mrs. Rodriguez had recorded Mary threatening to fine her for speaking Spanish to her grandchildren in her own front yard. What really caught my attention was a pattern. Mary seemed to especially target families who had stood up to her in the past or who had close ties to community leadership. Headed back to work on Monday, my back still tender from the fall, but I was unprepared for what awaited me in the driveway. A bright orange boot had been placed on my car's tire with a notice claiming I had violated parking regulations by being 3 inches too far from the curb. The fine, $250. Sarah took photos for our growing evidence file while I called a locksmith. This wasn't just harassment. It was getting expensive and personal. Later that evening, our neighbor Tina, who worked at City Hall, dropped by with interesting information. "Mary Stevens' husband James sits on the zoning board," she whispered, "and he's been fast-tracking approvals for his own construction company's projects, using his wife's HOA connections to silence complaints." This wasn't just about Christmas lights anymore. This was about exposing corruption that affected our entire community. Tuesday morning brought the next escalation. Mary had apparently called an emergency HOA meeting for 11 a.m. when most of us would be at work. I took the day off, and Sarah arranged to work remotely. We arrived to find the community center packed, not with Mary's usual supporters, but with angry neighbors. Many had taken personal time from work, determined not to let Mary railroad through more arbitrary rules. Mary sat at the front table, her usual smug smile faltering slightly at the unexpected crowd. "This meeting is for homeowners only," she announced, her voice shrill. "Some of you are just renters and have no voting rights." 3 people stood up, mortgage documents in hand, proving their homeowner status. The people Mary had tried to dismiss as renters were all, coincidentally, families who had opposed her in the past. I rose slowly, my back still painful. "Before we discuss any agenda items, I'd like to address the assault that occurred at my home on Saturday." Several gasps came from people who hadn't heard the story yet. Mary's face reddened. "That was an accident," she snapped. "And it's not on today's agenda." "According to HOA bylaw section 5.2, I responded, having studied the documents carefully, "any member may add an urgent safety concern to the meeting agenda with the support of 5 homeowners." 10 hands immediately shot up around the room. Mary's perfect blonde hair seemed to droop as she realized she was losing control. "Fine," she hissed. "You have 2 minutes." I described Saturday's events while Sarah distributed copies of the police report to board members. Mary attempted to interrupt several times, but neighbors shushed her. The murmurs grew as people realized just how far she had gone. When I finished, Mr. Peterson stood up. I move that we hold an emergency vote to remove Mary Stevens as HOA president pending investigation of her actions. Second, called voices from around the room. Mary slammed her gavel. This is outrageous. I've done nothing but try to maintain our property values. You should be thanking me, not attacking me. An older gentleman I didn't recognize stood up. I'm Arthur Williams. I've lived here 30 years, longer than anyone, he said quietly. I helped write the original HOA bylaws. They were meant to prevent extreme neglect, not to control every aspect of people's lives. Christmas lights bring joy, not lower property values. Mary, this isn't what an HOA is for. Mary's face contorted with rage. You're all just jealous, she shouted, because some of us care about having standards. Her outburst shocked everyone, proving exactly what we had been saying. The vote was overwhelming, 43-3 in favor of removing Mary from her position, effective immediately. As board vice president, Mr. Peterson took over the gavel. Mary, this is unacceptable, he said calmly. Please surrender the HOA records and accounts. 1 year later, our neighborhood is transformed. The multicolored Christmas lights now glow like beacons of freedom, little symbols of resistance that sparked a revolution. Mary Stevens no longer lives here. She sold her house after the court ordered her to pay back all the misappropriated HOA funds. The investigation uncovered years of financial abuse and zoning corruption involving her husband. What started as a fight over Christmas decorations exposed a web of corruption that reached into City Hall itself. The new HOA board, led by Mr. Williams, focuses on actual community improvement, not petty rule enforcement. Every December 1st, our neighborhood now holds a special ceremony, the collective lighting of our Christmas displays. A reminder that when ordinary people stand together against bullies, extraordinary things can happen. Our children still remember that crazy Christmas as the year Mom and Dad fought for colored lights. But what they're really learning is something more important: stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Sometimes the brightest Christmas lights are the ones you had to fight to keep shining. And sometimes it takes a little rebellion to remind everyone what community really means.